Can you see the screen? Hello, can you see the screen, please?
Yes.
Yes, sir, we can see.
Yeah. So, like Chanbhasa sir, I mean, requested, I can also give some preventive measurements and also the therapeutics and treatment options.
Yes.
Yeah.
Current situation, and see, the panic situation is there, and as a scientist, it is our responsibility to bring the actuals.
Yeah, I'll
And
try.
and since yesterday there are some people who are asking about immuno boosters. That is not of our point, but still, if something is there that you can also address.
Yeah, I can definitely.
Yeah.
I can try to give some very good information for you.
Yeah.
Okay, I think as I explained, coronavirus is it's very 40 to 160 nanometer size and has a single strand RNA with 30 kb genome. And we compared data from different regions, Italian and Nepal and Kerala and Telangana. We found one of the mutation is very predominant. I will also show the data for you, so that is very interesting. One moment. There's one mutation called A614G. So that is nothing but aspartic acid is converted to glycine here. Okay, and this kind of mutation never happened in the evolution. That's what we think, that this is kind of a man-made virus, but there is no reports yet. So the conversion of aspartic acid to glycine is very rare. And when what happens, there is one of the hypotheses I'm making nowadays, that the virus is consuming more glycine from our body, and glycine is very important for our regular lifestyle, like for endothelial function. And I'll show that mutation for you, which we submitted. Yeah, hope you can see the slide. I hope. Can you see the slide?
Yeah, we'll be able to see.
So we have taken different isolates from India. I'm showing Indian data, and also I'm not showing the foreign data. But here, see, the one mutation, the D614, is highly predominant, okay, compared to other mutations. So this mutation, aspartic acid to glycine, as I said, is very rare. I think not happened before. So we think that this virus is taking too much glycine from our body, and glycine deficiency is very fatal. And there is a reason why the patients are getting lung damage, and also issues with the hematological issues, and they're dying fast. And to that end, what I suggested yesterday, the health minister of Telangana, I had a meeting yesterday. I told them we have to promote the glycine rich foods. They are very important for the critical patients who are on the ventilators. Like glycine rich foods are, for example, eggs, chicken and legumes. These are the prime source of the glycine. Even we used to give glycine tablets also for some conditions. That's also preferable in this case. So this slide shows the mutation spectrum of this virus, different strains here. So the take-home message is D614 is highly predominant, and that mutation might be the reason why we are never able to target this virus so effectively. And now pharma is and other people are very interested to work on this candidate. And indeed, we have done some studies, and we found some very good molecules, and we are going for the trials with collaboration with Germany. Okay, I'm not going to show this data anyway, but this is a spike protein of this virus. We made this with the electron microscope data from China, and we have seen the mutation spectrum in this particular region of spike. RBD means a receptor binding domain. This is a very important domain where ACE2 receptor is binding, and it is allowing, it's like door for entering into our body. And I'll explain these slides now. This will make you understand. Okay, how the virus is entering into the body. This very important route is, as I said before, our cells, our body cells has a ACE2 receptor, angiotensin converting enzyme type 2 receptor. This receptor is very important for renal function. It's involved in our nephrology and also heart function. It's very important. Renal function. So this virus is having the spike protein. Spike protein also has a two domains, spike 1 and spike 2 domain. Spike 1 is very important to attach to this AC2, and spike 2 is very important to form a fusion. It has to fuse into the body cells. So if you block this AC2 receptor, then I think we're trying to stop the entry of the virus. But this virus, this AC2 expression levels are very high in lung alveolar linings, airways, especially lungs, and also heart cells and kidney cells. That is the reason why this virus is attacking these major organs, including lungs and heart. But when compared to adults, the receptor levels are very low in infants and kids. There's a reason why kids are not developing this infection very fast. This is what we made a hypothesis. So the expression of ACE2 is very low in kids and in the infants, and it's very high in adults. So this is a route how this virus is entering and causing all kind of nonsense here, like pulmonary fibrosis and inducing the inflammation. We call as a cytokine storm. Cytokine storm is nothing but it's like huge amount of cytokines are released, like in pro-inflammatory cytokines like IL-6, TNF alpha, etc. So that will completely block the airways, and also you see the high amount of mucus production. So due to the high amount of mucus production, there's a breathing problem, so that these patients are going on ventilation, and then slowly their lung function is deteriorating and they're dying fast. So this is how virus is entering and causing all the events leading to the death of the patient. Yeah, and one more important thing is, I was talking in news, like, see, we have a virus can spread through two routes. One is droplets. Droplets are nothing but they are more than 10 micron in size, and aerosol is less than 5 micron in size. So when you cough or when you sneeze, you get the droplets, and droplets are heavy in size. They will not circulate, they will not float in the air, so they will fall down on the surface and they'll stay for some time, for some hours, so that the contamination is very low. The aerosols are less than 5 microns, and they freely rotate in the flow in the air for hours, and since they are very small, they can't they can enter directly into the lungs. So normally when you have a droplets, the droplets are filtered by our mouth and trachea and other regions, so that it will not go to the lungs directly, and then the infection is very low. But in case of aerosol, that's what WHO was saying, that this is a airborne disease. So if you find aerosols see someone, if you go to some area, but somebody already infected patient, he's coughed and sneezed, but their aerosols are still lying there. When you swallow it, because our body can swallow, what do you call that? Inhale, more than 100 micron size. Okay, so the problem is aerosols will directly go to the lung alveolar cells, and then they'll start infection. To that end, we have to have a mask compulsory, and also now we are recommending to use the face shield also, so that we can get the more protection from these aerosols. I think I would not go with these symptoms, because you all know, dry cough and body pains, high fever. But some people have asymptomatic; they're not showing any symptoms. Even the interesting thing is, even some people are not developing even antibodies. So it is very strange. Yeah, I think the cases are going very high. Okay, I'll go with. Yeah, the treatment options like prevention is normally we are suggesting to take C vitamin with zinc sulfate. Zinc sulfate is very known for inhibiting viral replication. It's already known. So that's why the first line therapy for COVID-19 patient is vitamin C with zinc sulfate, and also D vitamin also playing a very important role in boosting the immune system. So this is the first line therapy for any COVID patient. First we give vitamin C with zinc sulfate, and there are some other antiviral drugs also given. For example, wait, yeah, but remdesivir and then Flaviflu is I think antiviral drugs which they are nothing but they are drug repurposing. So these drugs are not straight for the COVID, but they are meant for some other antiviral viruses, and then they are using here. But there is one drug called tocilizumab. This is a molecular antibody against interleukin 6 production. So interleukin 6 is a pro-inflammatory cytokine, and it damages a lot. So we need to stop the production of this interleukin by using this molecular antibody tocilizumab. This is one of the treatment we are giving. Remdesivir is basically stopping the RNA RDRP, mean replication of the virus, but this is only given in the critical patients, the last stage of the patients. Yeah, I think we have done some drug repurposing studies. I told you before, this is the model where you can see the receptor binding domain in ACE2 receptor, and this is spike 1. So by doing some kind of docking studies, we found very interesting molecules. Now we are going with the wet lab work. Yeah, as I said before, plasma antibody therapy. It's like nothing we call as a convalescent plasma. The patient who recovers from this COVID, they contain the high amount of neutralizing antibodies. So once after recovery, we'll do the 2 times RT-PCR, and we'll confirm that patient is negative for the infection. And also we'll measure the other infections like HIV, HBV. And after screening, we recommend this patient in recovered persons to donating the antibodies plasma. And this is a passive immunity. So some people, as I said before, they are not able to induce the humoral response immunity. So we are giving in a blood group matched patients. So each person can donate 2%. Like we take 500 ml of blood, and we take out almost 200 to 300 ml of plasma, and we'll measure the neutralizing antibodies and other virus infections, and we are going to donate. We are going to infuse to sick patients. Basically, this is a last therapy after giving the antiviral drugs and azithromycin, whatever. This I think plasma antibodies is a last option for the patients. Yeah, I think there are different modalities like therapeutics also coming in the picture nowadays. One is stem cells and stem cell derived exosomes. Stem cells basically they're known for their immunoregulatory properties. Okay, mesenchymal stem cells, adipose derived and bone marrow derived. They have capacity to release growth factors and some interesting what we call the proteins, which can try to suppress the immune activation. That's why. So in case of COVID-19 patients, you see hyperinflammation, so that when you give these stem cells, they can modulate the immune system, so that the persons will come to normal. And we're also working on stem cell derived exosomes. For example, in case of COVID-19, as I said before, the primary organ is lung and heart. They both are damaged, and we are developing cardiosphere derived exosomes. So these exosomes contain a lot of microRNA and other proteins, which can release the proteins which are try to suppress these events. There is one. And the other one is nutraceuticals. Lactoferrin, you all know, lactoferrin is a milk protein. There are some reports saying that lactoferrin also has immunomodulator properties. And one more interesting fact is this is binding with ACE2 receptor, so that the competitive binding. It is trying to inhibit the binding of spike protein to RB domain of ACE2. So this is also under research now. Yeah, the final one is vaccine. Vaccines are different types, as you all know. I'll just re-emphasize a few things here. DNA vaccines and RNA vaccines and peptide vaccines and the live attenuated and inactivated viruses vaccine. So DNA and RNA peptide are a subunit vaccine. So when you take DNA vaccine, RNA vaccine, you are taking only a part of the region, so that maybe that may not give a protection to most of the patients. So if you take the inactivated virus, normally Bharat Biotech, for example, any other company, they're inactivating virus with formaldehyde and beta-proglactone, and so that the virus structure is maintained, but this is a freeze, like basically we are killing the virus. So when you give this virus with and without adjuvants are the one factors which can give the more immunogenicity. So they basically fool our immune system that virus has entered in our body, so that our body start reacting to this inactivated virus. So that this can be giving a highly protection against the future infections. And here, how do you tell the vaccines worked or not? To that end, we have different methods to measure it. One is measuring neutralizing antibodies and also cytokine, T helper, Th1 response. And also we can do some RNA sequencing studies and tell that who is responders and non-responders. So these are very common practices used in measuring the vaccine response and also host immune response. And peptide vaccines are very expensive. Basically, what we do, we take the antigen portion like of the virus and also HLA genes of our human body, and we can try to check that where is this epitope, which epitope is binding very strongly to our HLA genes for presentation, and those are very good candidates. So by picking up these specific strong binding epitopes, we can design a vaccine which can really elicit the high immunogenicity for sure, but it's very expensive process. So yeah, these are different types of vaccination procedures ongoing now. There's one more, I think I said live attenuated is doing by Indian Immunological Limited. I'm also involved there. So basically here we are blocking one region of the virus or suppressing one region of the virus, so that the virus infectivity is going down, is completely zero. And then we are sending a live virus. The challenge of this vaccine is risk, because we are sending a live virus into the body, but we are blocking certain regions so that it will not do any pathogenicity. But in some cases, if it reverts, then it's a very big problem. So here safety is a problem, but the immunogenicity is very high, because since it's a live virus, I think your body will give a very good protection compared to other vaccines. But other vaccines are safer, but they have a lower immunogenicity inductions. Yeah, these are about the vaccines. What is the time now? It's almost 12. I think hope this is enough for this now. I think. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. If anybody wants have questions, I'm happy to answer.
Yeah. Now it is open to ask the questions. Yeah. Shall I ask some regarding your work also? There are see, you are converting the RNA total RNA. Generally, we do RT-PCR total RNA to pDNA by using oligo A primers. But you must be using some the like gene specific primers in this case, with hanging with poly A plus your gene specific, so that your gene, you said that 7 different type of genes you are amplifying. Here, I think because of 30 minutes you are keeping only, you are doing the reverse transcriptase reaction, and the pH change you are reporting. Can you, because reverse transcriptase generally they don't work in pH the acidic conditions. They work above 7.4 and above pHs. They work reverse transcriptase enzymes. So as the reaction goes on, the reverse transcriptase gets inactivated. Can you enlighten on this? Because of I'm curious on academic background, we worked on some sort of cDNA part, but here you are working with general routine RT-PCR. What we'll do, we'll complete all cDNA will prepare. Then we'll use the specific primers to amplify the gene of interest. But here in your case, I think that you are using only specific primers to convert your gene only into cDNAs. Madhu.
Yeah, here two steps. It's RT-LAN. Okay, we have a RT method, RT steps. After that, no, it's a converting RNA to cDNA. Okay. After that, we are amplifying only one or two genes. We specifically design not for multiple genes. So this gene, for example, let's take ORF gene or N gene. We have 6 sets of primers. Okay. So inside the loop and outside the loop. Basically, we're trying to amplify massively with this one. But next question you ask me is, pH is increased, right? But the enzyme what we are using, BST1 enzyme, is isothermal amplification enzyme. So here, RT is a different step, and then we're converting RNA to cDNA, and cDNA is converting to, cDNA is amplified. So this enzyme is not affected by pH. That's already known. We have used this before. That's why it's unlike other RT-PCR studies, RNA transcription studies. It's a different enzyme. So there is no effect on the pH. Of course, the pH is too high. Then by the time we reach this maximum, like our detection color is changing fast. After 30 minutes, we stop the reaction, and there's a chance of false positives also. Yeah. Any other question?
Here, can you scientific reason of pH alteration? Any substrate that you are taking of targeted with BST1 or something?
Yes, we of course I can disclose, but we have some confidential information here.
Okay,
so
okay.
We use different dyes, and which are very to this pH, not like so much higher. Even you have a small slight pH also, it will color change. I think I would not disclose now, but
I can understand. And second thing, regarding inactive vaccines, we know because of scientific community, coronavirus, actually there are other strains. There are not novel coronavirus. There are several commensals. In fact, in throat also we got commensals. And when we are using inactivated virus, so there is ever possibility of because of recombinations, there is every possibility of genome exchange. And there is a live attenuated virus. Anyhow, pathogenic gene has been removed. That non-structural genes have been removed in that case. So immediately, as soon as injected, it will increase that immunity. So subsequently, even though pathogen enters, there is no problem at all. But inactivated virus like Bharat Biotech or somebody else that is coming out, this inactivated virus may recombine with commensals. So because of here, non-structural genes are not eliminated, and it may recombine to give the pathogens, virulent strains.
Virulent strain? No, actually, in here, as per I know, they have taken only few different strains, like one strain which is predominant in population, like in India and other countries. So basically, when you use the formaldehyde or beta-perlactone, you're completely you're freezing the virus. Okay, and what you are saying is, so our body feels that, it reacts to the spike protein and other surface proteins of this virus. They start reacting, like say immunogenicity will be increased. But what you are saying is there is no chance of recombination because you're already freezing the virus, so it's almost dead. There's no activity inside. That's what you mean, right? If I'm right, please.
No. Recombination does not require with the activity. If the genetical material, basic Griffith, I will give you one that SARS virus, oral polio virus. It is inactivated virus. virus is not having any activity. So in that case, the normal virus, virulent strains, if they comes in contact with this inactivated virus, there is a possibility of exchange of genetical material. So if there, and there are few cases, may not be very high, but there are few cases where virulent strains converted into virulent strain because of oral polio vaccine. The people got developed polio because of only the oral polio vaccines. There are many cases in Srikakulam district, UP, and even so. Even there is a possibility of even with COVID, with if you are using inactivated virus.
I think if I understood your question properly, you are saying that since the virus has genetic material inside, even though it's inactivated, it can react with other viruses or something you said, and then it is causing the adverse effects. That's what you mean, right? But very simple. You take the virus, you're freezing the virus by formaldehyde so that it's completely kind of in an inactive stage. Okay, but since the life is gone, the chance of fusing with other virus and all, it's very low. That's what I understood. So yeah, I can't comment on this, but whatever you have experienced, yes, I don't understand. But anyway, so we're saying that it's combined with other virulent viruses. Once it's freeze, I think there is no, this virus is very inactive, completely inactive. It will not have any practices like combination, other activities. Hope you are there. Yeah. Any questions? I think.
Madhu. Okay.
Yeah.
Are you able to understand?
Yeah, I understood, but I don't. Yeah. I mean, I don't have any idea about what you what you were proposing. But my understanding is once you freeze the virus, even when you do the regular experiments in a cell line like immunofluorescence, once we add the formaldehyde, you don't see any further events. Like even it will not react with any other whatever reagents. I mean, whatever like there's no life basically. So if there is no life in the virus, the chance of recombination and fusing with other viruses, doing other things, I don't know, but maybe it's possible, but I'm not sure on that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think people don't have any questions, I hope.
Yeah, there are many questions.
Yeah.
Then please.
Yeah, please. Here in chat box, they are giving the questions, Madhu.
And then I can answer myself.
Yeah, in the chat box it is there, so you can.
Hello, sir. Read about Oxford University. Can you open the chat box?
Yeah, where is the chat box?
I'll read for you.
Shall I read for you otherwise?
No,
yeah, Madhav madam. Yeah, please read.
Yes, sir. Yeah, this is Pragati. Hello, sir. I have read about Oxford University vaccine. What do you think about it? I mean, if you could say your views on it, like they have used a weakened version of common cold virus and it's giving good results too. They have been worked for phase 3 trials. Sir, any comment on this, Dr. Madhumohan?
Yeah, I think I have a comments. When you see the Moderna virus, they have also said that it's working very fantastic, and they used RNA basically. Okay, but they have not measured any T cell response and other neutralizing antibodies. They just compared with plasma, regular IgG antibodies, and they gave that this fantastic. But coming to Oxford, of course, they entered in the phase 3. They have taken a weakened form of strain of this common cold. Yeah, unless until we see the data from them, like I said, the neutralizing antibody titers and also the Th1 response, like IL-2 production, interferon gamma, and TNF alpha is very important to say that cell-mediated immunity is really coming up, and even immunophenotyping. So what kind of subsets of immune cells are really predominant? Because we have to see the cells, for example, activated immune cells. We use the immunophenotyping technique to say that after giving vaccine, Oxford, whatever, So how many number of cells are in a active state? Means in a cytokine secreting state. Okay. So what we do, we take, for example, 1 million cells after vaccination, PBMCs, for example, and we measure how many of these cells are really active in state, because we add the befildin A compound, which will inhibit the secretion of the cytokines, so that we can easily enumerate how many cells are ready to secrete the cytokines. That will tell that this vaccine is working very good. So yeah, I don't have any information about the vaccine response and host immune response of this Oxford vaccine. We have to see the data first, then we have to comment. And yeah, and another important factor is host immune response. Recently, I got actually my project is selected as a national project. I got 10 crores of funding from ICMR. Now I'm going to start the work. Here, I propose that why people are very different in response. Okay, for example, there are asymptomatic and symptomatic. Also, you have a low, moderate, and high, and some people are dying very fast with sepsis and okay, ventilation. So I want to understand what is the genetic background and also transcriptome signatures. Okay, with this data, we can tell that we can stratify the subgroups in advance, so that yes, this fellow has the HLA allele of this frequency very high, which is very which is very infectious, which is very fatal, so that we can stratify the subgroups for treatment process also, and also vaccination. And also we can understand why people are responding so differently, like host immune response, like molecular mechanisms underlying this host immune response towards this COVID-19. So unless until you understand these factors, it's very difficult to say X vaccine is working good, because we have to really go through it. So I can't comment completely on Oxford vaccine. Of course, they are saying that it's really encouraging results are coming, but unless until anyone can see the neutralizing antibody titers and Th1 response and immunophenotyping data, yeah, we cannot say any, yeah, we cannot comment on the vaccine response.
I think Indian Immunological is also having the similar version of Oxford. I think they are the sister concern of that Oxford vaccine.
Yeah, I think
Indian Immunologicals.
I think I should not reveal that information, but they are working on live attenuated one. I think
Oxford is also having the same.
Yes, yes,
is it a sister concern?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Madam, next question.
I can see the chat box, but I don't know where to see, because my Mac first I'm using. Where is the chat box? Can anybody help me?
It's the base. See, just adjacent to your share screen, green share screen, there will be a chat box.
Yes. There is another question, sir. In our body, there are many immune.
Hello?
Madam,
Maybe can you repeat, ma'am?
If sample collected for test and could not process for 2 days, then there is a chance of pseudo results, stability of sample.
No, we have. Can you repeat again question? I'll answer. This is a very interesting question. That's what I have.
If sample collected for test and could not process for 2 days, then is there chance of pseudo results?
No, once we get the sample, if you are not proceeding immediately, we'll keep it in a -80 for a couple of days, and nothing will happen. No pseudo results. But the swab collection is very important. As I said, as I explained before, that is causing these pseudo results. Means false negatives are coming. So storage is if you have a proper. That's why when I'm giving.
Actually, we have lot
of sorry.
Yeah, you complete. Madhu, you complete.
Yeah. So that's why when we are giving a permission to any lab, any institute, we are first checking the storage conditions. Like we have a -80, then we are approving that. Otherwise, we are not approving. So there is no problem. The sample can stay even 1 month, because even ICMR also asks us to advise to keep the aliquots. Okay. If something goes wrong, we can repeat the sample. Okay. So that is not the limitation, but transportation is very important. And then swab collection is very important for this, pseudo results.
And for plasma therapy, how long a person will have the antibodies?
Yes.
This is one of the questions.
Plasma therapy after recover, we will wait for 28 days. Okay. After 28 days of recover, we'll call the patient, we call the recovered person to our lab, and we screen them by using our CPAS kit. This kit is basically for neutralizing antibody titers, and then we'll ask for the donation. And how long this stays in the body is depending on your immune system and your body. So mostly we expect 30 to 40 days the antibody should be lying there.
There is one more question by Suma Malini. Our body, there are many immune cells like natural killer cells, phagocytes. Why these cells are not able to kill the coronavirus that enter in our body?
Yeah, I think it's very good, interesting question. When you take Th1 and Th2 response, okay, Th1 cells are very important for against the bacteria and virus, and Th2 cells, T helper type 2 cells are very important for like for example helminthes and cancer cells and all. So especially these cell-mediated immune response induced by Th1 cells have the more capacity to release these cytokines which can neutralize these viruses. But there is no there is no evidences that NK cells are working against these viruses. NK cells and other cells are very important. CD8, of course, CD8 and CD4 helper cells. This Th1 is very important for viruses and bacteria because of the receptors. Actually, they contain receptors towards the viruses.
Yeah, one more question by Sridevi. Please give your view on community spread of coronavirus, the COVID-19 in Telangana and India, and is it an alarming situation?
I think I should not comment because it's a government subject. Of course, you are reading papers and you are reading the news channels. It's already in a community spread now, and I think since I'm in charge of this lab, I can say that yes, we are in a bad stage. I could say that.
Are the people recovered from COVID-19 still infectious?
It's a very interesting question. We are seeing few cases. We are calling a reinfection, but we don't know. We don't have a clue. For example, a doctor, he's recovered and he was very happy for 38 days. Again, he got the infection. Okay, is it a reinfection or we missed something in his body? Okay, so that's the reason I am proposing to the government that we have to sequence some strains here. Okay, some strains are very pathogenic. Basically, we don't have an idea how many strains are existing in the system now in the outside environment. So it's very difficult to answer. For example, who is this? I don't know, but it's a very interesting question. Whether it's a reinfection or already infection is there, but after some time again they're getting back. With no idea about it. But unless until we do some NGS studies about the strains, we cannot comment on it.
Yeah, sir, according to you, when vaccine will launch?
I can't answer this question because it's again, I had a lot of issues before with this statement, but I think we are really working hard. Yes, Bharat Biotech also working very hard. That's what, because I met recently that guy. I think they may expect in next year, anytime, we don't know. No, I can't answer this very controversial.
Yeah, sir, are there any chances of reappearing of symptoms in the recovered patients?
Yes, I just know I answered you. Yes, we see that. How we see that? The recovered patient, we do 2 times RT-PCR. If it is negative, means after 17 days we claim it as is a negative. But we don't know, after again 28 days, some people are developing the symptoms and like fever and all. And that's what I'm saying. Is a reinfection or is the infection is subsided for some time? Again, it's coming back. One hypothesis I was making that sometimes this virus is sitting in the lungs, inside the lungs, and it's not contacting with the system circulating like blood and immune cells. So by the time we realize the whole the lungs are damaged completely and collapsed. There was a case recently that police officer, he tested 4 times negative with RT-PCR, but after some time he collapsed, and when you see the CT report, it's completely damaged. So that's why we are advising, don't rely completely on RT-PCR. At the same time, you should go for HRCT also. and then you keep everything ready. So if your lungs are fine, means at least you're absolutely in a good stage, because it's irreversible damage. Irreversible means we can give antiviral drugs and we can get it back the person. But once lungs are damaged, I think it's very difficult to get them back. So HRCT is advised.
Yeah, here, sir, do you see any scope of using protein-based vaccines? Like he mentioned, like BCG vaccine in terms for antidote for novel coronavirus. And can you elaborate what are the challenges virologists face in India in terms of working towards cure against viral diseases?
I think I should tell this. I think I should have told this.
Yeah, yeah. Being young, see, you have virology. In fact, India, we were almost doing nothing in virology area. Because being a viral microbiologist in our microbiology department, we initiated some in 70s, some virology part of work used to be there when Geeta Sharma and other people were there. But after that, almost virology work, not only almost India virology work has been stopped. Because of the facilities and not interest of government and other things. But I appreciate Madhu, your efforts for doing the research in even the biosafety establishment, being at younger age, you could able to do that one. And you are the appropriate person to answer this question, please.
Yeah, thanks for answering partly. I think I should ask, I will not say completely is not in India, but there people are working, but like you said, it's like haphazard, nothing concrete. We never had a practice of taking to finish line. There's a problem in our case due to the resources and other issues. We start something with because we have a very good brains and motivation, but the system has to allow. Like he said, it's very expensive affair, I would say, because for making the base filter lab, we spent almost 1.5 crores, and it's a small lab. For we know hardly we have 4 labs in India, and out of these 4, 2 are in Hyderabad only, but they are not functional. Hyderabad Central University has a big B3 lab; it's not functional. And CCMB, of course, functional, but they are not allowing to others to do. So only they have to do. So that's the reason why I approached government and of India, and then they sanctioned this project, and we made it this lab in 20 days. In 20 days, we finished this lab. And so this lab is perfectly all right. It's maintaining minus 50 Pascal pressure. If somebody wants to work, I think you are most welcome. You can use this lab for your work. But of course, there are some ethical guidelines and issues because environmental issues. People are already in a panic state. If you start culturing the virus, I think neighboring and surrounding areas will really attack on you. So that's one reason. So I think India is not prepared for that. I'm really agree with Dr. Chandbasha. Key one is yes, I think this is a time where our young brain should work on the virology, because see, it's not going to end. I think we get with other virus in future. We should not suffer like this. If you see, almost it's 6 months, nothing has progressed yet. Okay, I think this is the time where virologists and microbiologists has got really good what we call recognition. Even I was telling in the news channel, national channel, that everyone is talking about police and then what you call municipal workers and doctors, but nobody is talking about scientists. I said that the frontline workers as scientists. I think my lab has almost 16 people, 3 are positive already, and they are working with virus alive. Unlike doctors are just touching. I mean, they're standing away from the. I'm not degrading the doctors, but I told that this one community should get a recognition so that people will really come out and enjoy. They also work hard. And I told this, I gave a request to government of Telangana, so please include this. But of course, they don't know the big difference between doctors and scientists. That's a problem. Anyway, yeah, I think now India has to invest more money and more research on virology. Otherwise, whatever damage happened, it's really irreversible. And to avoid such things in future, yes, I think now everyone realize, I think there is a scarcity of microbiologists. I think we are really begging people and we are offering huge salaries, but nobody is willing to work because of the whatever like safety issues, and some people are scared. And yeah, I think this is a time this field should grow and prosper. I think now everyone realize, even government of India and state Telangana, I think going to invest more on microbiology. Yeah.
Thank you. Now the next question by Dr. Patil.
Yeah.
how the vaccines will work in the patients who are asymptomatic and not developed antibodies. You mentioned it seems.
I think vaccine is only useful the person is not infectious. That's what first prime the requirement is you shouldn't have any infection. We screen the person. If you have an infection, there is no use because already your body has a virus, and then of course you are asking asymptomatic and person doesn't have antibodies means he will recover fast. That's what we are observing. But the people, that's why I'm saying most of the population doesn't require vaccine actually. They're coming, see moderate infections and they're coming fast with their own immune system. The people who are not able to make antibodies, depending on passive immunity or need some emergency, I think they need vaccine very importantly. That's why with our project, I'm going to prioritizing the vaccination subgroups. So for example, Bharat Biotech or whoever comes with the vaccine, they cannot supply for 1.3 billion people in India especially. So we have to stratify the subgroups who should go first, or kids or adult people or their based on their profile, based on their immune system, we have to categorize. Otherwise, I mean, getting for 1.3 billion people, it takes ages, maybe 1.5 year or 1 year, because the production is also not happen so fast. So yeah, I think vaccine is required mainly for a certain a part of population who are really low in immunogenicity or immunity. So they need that.
Okay.
Yeah, there is
Another
one more
question is
I
from Spurti sir. Recently, AIIMS has published a research paper on the disease and patients. Can we please know about it in detail?
No, I mean, I didn't know this paper. Disease and patients. What is the abstract? I mean, you have any? What is about this? I don't know this paper about.
Okay.
Research
There is one more
paper
question.
on the disease and patients. It seems this is Spurti. Yeah.
That's fine. She's talking about journal,
No,
but what exactly content she's talking about? I don't know.
Talking maybe about the journal only.
No, I don't know.
Everybody cannot see each and every paper.
Yeah.
Yeah, Madhu, one more. Like generally, vaccine development takes 8 to 10 years. The corona is highly risky to our immune and mutate itself. How can you improve corona vaccine in 2 years? How can you develop the vaccine in 2 years? That what?
No, I think I had a vaccine business there. But anyway, I will try to give a logical explanation. But I don't want to comment because it's really controversial. I think.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. I don't want to. But anyway. Let's take RNA viruses are really, you're right. They don't have a proofing capacity. That unlike other viruses, DNA viruses, we have proofreading. So that even if that makes, I think there is a system to correct that. But in case of RNA viruses, the proofreading capacity is very low. That's why they make a lot of mistakes. Sometimes this mistake means mutations can lead to neutral effects. Sometimes it leads to a very lethal effects. But coming to the vaccine, yes, once you freeze the vaccine with formaldehyde and beta peptidoglycan, I think, as I said to Dr. Chandbasha, there's no much things will happen. They're just freeze. Like in a museum, when you keep one statue, completely put in a formaldehyde, there is no life. They don't really react too much to the things. So there is no scope of getting mutations so fast, and also activity is very low. So for getting any mutation, there should be some activity change, like replication. Then you just get a new mutation. So live attenuated virus or live attenuated has a risk, but inactivation virus has very, very low chance of getting these mutations.
Okay, Dr. Vijay Kumar is asking why TNF, there is a tumor necrotic factor, unable to suppress the virus not to spread to adjacent cells.
Why TNF alpha 3? What did you say? Sorry.
TNF. Why TNF is unable to suppress the virus not to spread to adjacent. Generally, in tumor cells, one tumor cells releases the tumor necrotic factor, and it protects the adjacent cells. And even normal influenza and other cases also, this is helping. But why it is not happening in case of your coronavirus?
It's not my virus.
Why it is not? No, it is a virologist who should answer. Because no, there is one gene, structural gene. I will answer this one because I am a molecular biologist here. There is one non-structural gene which will be inactivating tumor necrotic factor. There are a total 15 or 17 non-structural genes. One of the gene that is coding is so some drug development, some scientists are targeting even this non-structural enzyme also.
Yeah, I think partly you answered the question already. I think this virus has a 16 non-structural proteins. Sorry, it's complete 16 proteins. Out of that, they have non-structural proteins which are really inhibiting some important mechanisms, different mechanisms. Let's say I would not keep specific, but one of the, I think TNF alpha also maybe. So these are the cytokines which should really nullify or kill these viruses. But somehow this virus is interfering with these pathways and not allowing to them attack. I think that's true, but I think it's not completely understood yet, but people are working on it.
Yeah, for plasma donor and acceptors, is of need same blood group?
Yes.
Okay.
But wo can give to anyone. I think it's very simple, you know, right? But most of the time, yeah. If someone wants to really involve, I can send the details. We have made a portal. Then please visit and save the lives, because I'm working with the Telangana government and the intelligence department. They're all really helping us, and government madam also is really pushing this this cause. So what are the parameters and how we set the subjects and etc. I'll send the flow chart or some document. I think you all should encourage your neighbors or your known people who are already recovered within 28 days. They should approach us.
Have any relationship to change of climate and the COVID-19 infection?
Yeah, people said that no, it's coming summer, it will nullify, but it doesn't happen. You already had an answer. No, I don't think so. Once it has a 22 to 30 degrees, it's happy, it's growing. And, yeah.
What are the long-term consequences for those who survived of COVID-19?
Yes, very good question. Yes, we are expecting that the damage will be, especially who are COPD patients and diabetic and like comorbid guys. So they have long-term damages inside. So recovery will be very, very slow. It's true. I think I'm not saying it's a completely studied, but the report saying that the damage will be permanent sometimes, and we have to deal with that. That's all.
Yeah, Dr. Anuradha is asking, can the vaccine is going to protect all variants? Because vaccine which was initiated long back, and now there are some of the old strains already disappeared, and so in this case, as a virologist, what do you answer?
I gave this question in new channel. I think there are a lot of controversy happened, so I don't want to comment. Yes, so if you use one virus, how can you expect the complete protection? It's true, because if one company has taken one virus and they want to, no, they might taken the predominant virus strain and they tried it. Yes, this question, yes, even I had the same question, but I cannot answer on this.
There is a one, I think my student Arvind is asking, I heard that some COVID-19 vaccines are being made from the isolated fetal cells. I don't think, so do you think that it can be effective, as these fetal cells are derived from the kidney cell lines, that is HEK293, and retinal cells PER66? Is this effective?
I don't understand first of all the question, but anyway, so you have taken the renal cells and they made a vaccine, or what?
Yeah, renal one and retinal one, two cell lines. That's the fetal renal cell lines and retinal cell lines they have taken, and these are basically inactivated cell lines. The viral cultures.
Okay, then they made it as a vaccine. I don't know this. Yeah. So unless until you have the coronavirus components, I would not say that this will elicit any immunogenicity. Or you can, no, I don't know. I can't answer this question. I don't have an answer for this.
What is the minimum incubation period of COVID in host?
Yeah, it varies. Normally it's 7 to 14 days, but it varies on the your immune system. Some people they are showing symptoms. I mean, see, basically incubation means this virus is multiplying, and so yeah, it's like 5 to 14 days we are saying, depending on immune system.
Yeah. Next, why is DDHCTP not protecting our bodies from the virus infection? What could be the reason, sir? Ketan Kumar.
No, I'm sorry, I don't have answer. Yeah, I think we have to. They have so many factors. I mean,
Yeah.
you can work on virus, but yeah, we can't really focus on everything now.
Yeah. Next, Dr. Komal is asking. Actually, this is a microbiologist pure question. What is herd immunity, and could it play a role in stopping the spread of COVID-19 with respect to India? Can you
Yeah,
answer?
I answered this question one of the channels, but anyway, I will ask it. So, herd immunity is nothing but social immunity, and basically, to attain this immunity, it has to infect at least 60% of the population in India. Okay, so one out of what is 60% of 1.3 billion is shoes, means herd immunity can attain by previous vaccines like BCG or rabies or polio. This is one type of herd immunity, or one can be say natural infections. So your body will attain this herd immunity due to the two modes. One is the vaccination, prior vaccination, or natural infections. So for example, you have a community where at least 60% of the population already infected, means your community will get this kind of what you call social immunity. We call it social immunity actually. And based on that, yeah, we're getting this herd immunity. It takes time in India at least, because 60% or 70% people has to be infected. Then only you can attain. And once you attain, we call them as a immune passporters. So they already have a passport for against this COVID-19, so that the chance of getting reinfection is low. So yeah, I think it's very complicated. Herd immunity is very broad term actually. So in European countries it's already attained, but in our cases, since our population is very huge, we have to at least get 60 to 70% population should be infectious. So it takes time.
In Delhi, it is like almost 24 to 25% of the population. ICMR study states that 24 to 25% population is infected, and they are having the antibodies. What about the stats? Do you have any about Hyderabad?
No,
Because ICMR did a similar study in even Hyderabad.
I think I cannot reveal that information, but yes, they are doing.
Okay. And there is a one more, sir. Can we basic? I think the BSc student. Why can't detect COVID-19 virus under microscope?
It's very small, and yes, I think viruses. I think I told in my first presentation is 40 to 160. I think with normal microscope you can't see them since their size is very small. You have to go for electron microscope. That's the whole reason you can't see them, small size.
Yeah, Dr. Anuradha, any epidemiological report is released or published from India or ICMR or from any authentic report so that information can be accessed?
I think that's what I was in January only. I wrote an email to PMO and ICMR. Please recruit some epidemiologists. Contact tracing is very important. There is one of my neighbor. I mean, not my neighbor means in my lab there was a professor called Dr. Koch in Switzerland. He's a very good epidemiologist. Now he's called as a Mr. COVID in Switzerland. That fellow made a strategy to come down 1,000 cases per day to 10 cases now. So I requested government of India and state governments, you should please take some virologists and epidemiologists in your team. Only with doctors, you are never going to trace this and break this chain. Yeah, I think maybe the report, but not really significant. I think this is a time to include epidemiologists in the game.
Yeah, Madhu, there is one interesting question actually. HIV, there are certain genes which are linked with the HIV genes, even this corona genome. So one of the student, in fact, he's my student. He's maybe it appears to be very silly. Patient who have recovered from corona have any chance of transmitting virus to the next generation? Maybe his version. Is it getting chromosomal integrated like HIV virus? It is getting integrated and it is maintained for a longer while. What about have you checked by virus-free cells taking those infected persons, infected cells you are taking, and you are trying to do the PCR for checking possible chromosomal integration?
See, infection can come through different routes, right? Like for example, HIV is a STD, right? sexually transmitted disease, for example. So the question is really still, yes, people are asking this. This virus can be also like HIV, can be transmitted to, but yeah. So what we are saying is after 16 to 7 days of the infection, this virus is completely gone from our body. So there is no chance of, I mean, at least likely, there's no chance of transmitting to the next generation. See, next generation can be basically, yeah, through, yeah, there's a,
Themselves, anyhow.
yeah. So no such reports. I don't think so.
No, forget about the next generation. But is it getting chromosomal integration? Because in HIV, after cDNA conversion, the double-stranded cDNA gets integrated into the human genome. So it will maintain there for a very longer while. So is it happening with the novel coronavirus?
No, I think I don't have a clear answer for that. But yes, let's see. Virus basically take over your machinery, like transcriptomic machinery or translation. It will take over and you'll use your system to multiply its own genome or whatever is amplified. But like HIV, it's really integrating with chromosomes maybe, but HIV is staying for a long time in your body and it's attacking CD4 cell, T cells and all. But this case of virus, no such reports. It's an interesting point to work on it. Of course, this virus can also integrate with the chromosome, but how long it will stay and what is the mechanism, I don't know. No idea. No reports.
Yeah, cell lines, we can do curing, we can remove the virus and we can try at least whether it is a DNA, still it is positive for PCR. Okay, one more student, like whether the symptoms are different with age groups and sexes. Like international reports says that women are safe, but Indian reports suggest that women are at risk.
That's why I'm saying no. It's epidemiological factors are very, very different, and it depends on the ethnicity. We have to work on the ethnicity-based population. So okay, let's put like this way. So Telangana people were different from the Himachal Pradesh. This is basically ethnicity and epidemiological factors. Yes, some reports are saying that blood group A people are very sensitive and they will not survive. Of course, I'm also blood group A. So it's not like that. Yes, but we have done some study that we have taken the different blood group data and then sequencing and HLA genes data, and we are checking with the virus genome. See, why we are saying that blood group A people are very sensitive and they will not come back. I think it's too early to say. Yeah, maybe based on the epidemiological factors, sex and age is very important. You're right, and comorbid is playing a role. Definitely, I agree. So the older the people, they might have the diabetes and hypertension and COPD. They are in a high risk zone, and yeah, but sex and then other things, I think still we have to work on it.
And one person, there's a Viparin, because Viparin is known to break the most of the viral chains. Sir, there are any research taking place using the Viparin?
I heard, but I think no active research is going on.
Okay. I read this in some research paper about COVID virus that genome are two types. Some of them are dominant and some of them are recessive. Why? And
no, this is
probably.
Yeah. This is yeah, because you see different viruses due to recombination, they got a lot of changes. Some are dominant, some are. That's why I say no lethal. Even if there's a mutation, that what I was showing you just now, aspartic acetylglycine 614G, it's a highly predominant mutation. You take any content of the virus, this mutation is predominant. That's why we are really focusing on that virus. But when I check the more in depth, the aspartic acetylglycine, the change is neutral actually. It's not like there's no charge difference, there's no too much. But the neutral mutation could be lethal or basically it has to change.
Neutral.
Yeah, it's a neutral. That's what we meant. There's no big difference in charge. This mutation might be interesting because it's has seen in high predominant in all over the world. But whether it's a really dangerous mutation or not, we have to clone it and we have to do some molecular biology studies. Yeah, your question is, it's a nature. We always see the lethal and neutral and mild. So yeah, it's a completely and genetic background.
Somebody Any vegetable source for glycine?
Yes, I think I forgot. Legumes are very, very high. I was telling yesterday our health minister, please promote the legumes and eggs and chicken. Yes, this will really long-term benefit. The people who are on serious condition, I think there are clinical trials also started now in abroad, that they are even giving the glycine powder. We give glycine in some cases actually. I would not reveal that disease, but it's very important for endothelial cell function and other coagulation factors. So yes, glycine can be procured from legumes. You can try that.
Yeah, Madhu, actually D is replaced with the G, isn't it?
Aspartic acid to glycine.
Glycine is replaced. So glycine, actually, if you make the glycine deficiency, then the that protein synthesis will be stalled over there. That's a normal concept of there's a gene regulation there in concept. So how I don't understand excess providing glycine will help here controlling the novel coronavirus.
No, I think our hypothesis is that since this predominant change, more glycine is required for this regular, because the virus is having this mutation, no? It's always inserting glycine in place of aspartic acid. Of course,
Glycine, if the glycine is limited over there, like your tryptophan operon, you recollect lacoperan, tryptophan operon, if this limiting factor, if it is reduced, that gene synthesis does not take place. So here, if the glycine synthesis is stalled, spike, it is in spike protein. So spike protein synthesis will be stalled. So that what happens if the spike protein is not produced, it will not be binding with ACE2 receptors. So the binding will not be taking place. But to contradictory, you are like, I think I don't understand this one. Can you?
no. But what we said is when glycine is coming, the synthesis will stop. It means stop codon, or what do you mean?
It will be increased. Actually, glycine is required for D to G mutations is taking place in spike protein. Okay, and this is now G is essential for spike protein synthesis. So when you are providing excess amount of glycine, then what happens? Spike protein will be easily synthesized. Then
I got your point. So anyway, virus is having it's taking from our body. You are just supplementing. So that's why I said that the patients who are on the serious condition, they are not able to react to any other medication like remdesivir and all. So anyway, virus is taking, it's very growing fast. But one way you have to supplement that. The other effects like lung function, endothelial function is completely depending on the glycine. Of course, this is the clinical side is started, but like glycine, what you call supplement is very important now. But what you are saying is the more glycine you give, the more as virus will grow. That's what you are saying, right? Anyway,
if it is limited, it will be stalled over there. The spike protein will be stalled.
You can't limit because anyway the virus will take your glycine till you die, till the person dies. No, so anyway we are attacking the virus with other factors like remdesivir, and we are stopping the replication in different ways, antiviral drugs. But in the meantime, the patient has to be stabilized. That's why we are giving we have to give the glycine so that the patient lung function can be.
Madhu, if I am correct, glycine is also not an essential amino acid. It is not that much essential. It is not for normal metabolic activity. Whatever, there are few amino acids which were classified as essential amino acid. It has to be provided from outside. But glycine is not essential amino acid. So excess providing from outside, maybe we are promoting the growth of increasing the synthesis of spike protein, and we are encouraging the virus.
No, actually, yesterday also I was reading about the clinical trials happening on glycine. So glycine is very essential for our body. There are a lot of pathways I can send you. For example, endothelial function and coagulation factors, and then even I have a couple of synthesis. I mean, signaling pathways, very very important. So if you lose the glycine completely, your lung is completely damaged. I mean, non-functional. So that's what I have information. Yeah, maybe we can check that.
Okay. Yeah. Is there any information about metabolic approaches to detect COVID-19 infection? Metabolic approaches.
So metabolic pathways are affected. I mean, the metabolomics is different, and metabolic pathways, if there is an interference in metabolic pathway, for example, there is one study, ACE2 receptor, metabolism or ACE2 receptors pathway. So disturbing by some drugs. I don't have information, but metabolomics is very important. Like genomics, you can also go for metabolomics and see which metabolites are high amount, which glycans are really playing a role. That's very interesting for diagnosis and yeah, pathogens understanding. But no, I don't have any clue.
So any further queries if you have?
Yeah, please contact me.
Yeah. Thank you, Madhu. Please, whatever the two presentations you say, because we are supposed to share these things. My mail ID and the numbers are there with you. Kindly share so that they will be benefited out of this. Thank you, Madhu, and all the participants. Thank you very much, Madhu, taking your valuable time, because now this pandemic situation time, I know how busy you will be. And despite of your busy schedule, you could able to take out your some time and explain us about the vaccine, about the different areas of coronavirus, and in general about virology. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for giving this opportunity. I think with this presentation, people will got a lot of clarity how we are running the labs in the different, so that next time when you get a report, you should question what is the CT value. That's what I told the government, that just private labs are just giving positive, negative, but we don't know what is that. If it is really CT value is below 30 or below 20, so I think now everyone got an idea that yes, how to really make sure that the infection is there or not. Yeah, I think if you have more questions, please contact me. I think we are here to help you. Yes, I will send these presentations to your email ID. So you can take over. Yeah,
it will be made. We want to make everything available to this audience, so that general skills and not only the basic ideas, the skills should be empowered. That is the intention of this workshop.
I think it's very interesting.
Thank you. And so if you want, like, we'll take some break, 10 minutes break. Then we'll do some basics, phage isolation, embryo-inated eggs, that are which are operated in my lab, that will show you the techniques. Madhavi.
Yeah.
Madhavi.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll break.
Lot of virology section. Virus has entered into my system. Thank you. So thank you so much, Dr. Madhu Mohan sir. You have given very wonderful presentation on the present scenario. Hope all our participants like today's session. Thank you, sir. Yeah. We'll take a break for 10 minutes. 5 minutes. 5 minutes break. Is it okay? Yeah.
Okay.
And we start 12:45. Yeah.
Do you want me to leave, or can I take a leave? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
No, if you are in a hurry, like if you have some work, you can leave. Majority of the session is over, but if you want to interact with us, you can continue. Otherwise, if you have some work, you can leave.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
It's up to you. You are the boss of today's session. It is up to you. You can decide.
Sure, sir. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
So, participants, you can take a break